Have you ever reached a point where, after everything you've walked through, the pain, the battles, the tears, suddenly everything grows quiet? The emotions calm, the striving stops, even your desire to help, to process, to fix, fades. And you sit in that stillness, wondering, why do I feel empty when I thought I should feel whole? What you are experiencing may not even feel like healing at first. It feels like something has ended, like you've outgrown something, but you don't know what comes next. The passion that once drove you feels distant. The intensity that once filled you has grown still, and yet deep inside, you know this is not failure. This is not regression. This is something different, something holy. Few talk about this stage. Most believe healing ends when the pain stops. But for those God has set apart, healing goes further. He does not stop at comforting your wounds. He strips even the identity you built around overcoming those wounds. Not to leave you empty, but to prepare you for a depth of assignment that cannot be reached through effort, only through surrender. This is where God takes you beyond doing healing and into becoming the vessel through which His healing flows. Quietly, powerfully, without striving. If you found yourself in this strange silence, unsure what it means, declare it now in the comments. Lord, prepare me for what's next. Because this is not the absence of healing. This is the doorway to your highest purpose. Sign 1. You no longer feel drawn to heal anyone, not even yourself. There comes a strange and sacred moment in deep healing when something unexpected begins to happen. You no longer feel the drive to help others, to fix situations, or even to work on your own growth. The urgency that once fueled you, the constant impulse to process emotions, study new tools, or offer guidance, begins to fade. It feels unnatural at first, even unsettling. After years of pouring yourself out for others and striving to better yourself, the sudden stillness can feel like something has gone wrong. But beloved, nothing is wrong. Something far greater is unfolding. You do not lose your compassion, you lose the urgency. The deep care for others remains, but the drive to carry them does not. You still love, but you are no longer driven by a restless need to fix. What once felt like a holy duty now feels distant. The conversations you once led, the emotions you once analyzed, the books you once devoured, they no longer call to you. The system has grown quiet. The striving has been hollowed out. This is not burnout. It is not fatigue. It is not failure. It is sacred emptiness. You are not shutting down because you've lost strength. You are being emptied so that God can prepare new capacity. For years, perhaps even your entire life, your nervous system was wired around giving, around caring, around reaching out. But now, God has flipped the system. You are no longer sustained by activity. You are being prepared for presence. You have spent seasons filling yourself with knowledge, with tools, with techniques. But God is dismantling all of that, not to leave you empty, but to make room for something entirely different. This emptiness is not the absence of God's work. It is the clearing of everything that is too small for where He is leading you next. In Psalm 46:10, God says, "Be still and know that I am God." This stillness is not passive. It is active surrender. You are being called to sit in the sacred quiet, where no tools are needed, no processes are demanded, and no striving remains. It is here that you stop performing healing, and you begin to embody it. This hollowing is preparation. The healer must first be emptied of striving so that healing can flow without effort. You are being repositioned not to carry healing as a burden, but to radiate healing as your very nature. The stillness is not proof of disconnection. It is proof of readiness. Sign 2. Your energy can no longer tolerate certain people. As this deeper work of healing unfolds, another sign appears, one that can feel even more confusing and painful. You begin to notice that certain people, once close and familiar, now leave you feeling instantly drained. Interactions that once felt natural now exhaust you. Small talk feels heavy. The conversations that once energized you now press against your spirit like an unseen weight. It is not judgment, it is not pride. It is your spirit saying, "This is not safe anymore." Your energy can no longer tolerate environments that require you to shrink, to perform, or to carry burdens that are no longer yours to hold. Where once you adapted to meet the emotional needs of others, now your entire being rejects that posture. The healer within you no longer bends to accommodate every pain that enters the room. This is God fiercely protecting your spiritual environment. He is no longer permitting you to pour yourself into relationships that drain the very life He has restored in you. Your nervous system, once stretched thin by years of emotional carrying, is now being rewired to guard what God has rebuilt, and the protection reaches even into your physical body. Suddenly, being around certain individuals triggers physical symptoms. You may experience tension in your chest, anxiety rising unexpectedly, headaches, digestive discomfort, or even rashes and flare-ups. This is not weakness. It is your body enforcing boundaries your soul always needed. God is using your very cells to warn you. This atmosphere is no longer aligned with your assignment. Some may misunderstand your distancing. They may accuse you of pulling away, of becoming distant or cold. But beloved, you are not withdrawing from love. You are obeying a holy recalibration. You are no longer available to carry what God never assigned you to carry. Isaiah 52:11 declares, "Depart, depart, go out from there. Touch no unclean thing. Come out from it and be pure, you who carry the vessels of the Lord." You are now that vessel, and God fiercely guards what He has purified. This season often brings isolation, but it is not abandonment. It is calibration. You are not shrinking back in fear. You are stepping forward into a refined calling. The solitude you feel is not punishment. It is sacred space where God rewires your sensitivity to prepare you for higher assignments. You are not here to absorb others' shadows any longer. You are here to carry His light. This new sensitivity is not a limitation. It is your compass. It will guide you with clarity into the relationships, environments, and assignments God is aligning for your next chapter. What feels like loss is actually divine positioning. And though it may feel lonely for a time, you can rest knowing that God is creating space for the people who are truly aligned with where He's taking you next. Sign 3. You feel emotional waves that don't belong to you. There comes a strange, sacred stirring deep within the soul of one who has entered this final stage of healing. You are going about your day, walking, cooking, working, and suddenly, without warning, a wave of emotion rises. Grief floods your chest. Tears well up without cause. Or sometimes a burst of joy, tenderness, or awe fills you so powerfully it leaves you breathless. And you search your mind for the reason, but there is no reason. This is the sign that your vessel has been opened for a greater work. You are no longer simply processing your own pain. You have become a vessel through which God allows unspoken burdens to pass. Burdens that belong to others, to regions, even to generations. This is not because you are more important, but because you have been made available. Your soul has been emptied enough that heaven can now flow through you in ways you never sought. In earlier stages of healing, you would have analyzed these emotions, attaching them to memories, traumas, or stories from your own life. But now you recognize, this isn't mine. You no longer panic when these emotions rise. You no longer ask why. Instead, you allow them to move through you without clinging. You do not fight the wave. You do not suppress it. You simply remain still, letting it pass through as quickly as it arrived. This is transmutation. God is using your very being as a living instrument, carrying the weight of unprocessed grief for those who cannot yet carry it themselves, releasing it into His presence without absorbing it into your identity. Romans 8:26 reminds us, the Spirit Himself intercedes for us with groanings too deep for words. In this place, you are not simply interceding in prayer. Your entire body becomes part of the intercession. You carry what others cannot yet release, and yet you remain whole, because you are no longer trying to own the emotions, but to allow them to flow through without leaving residue. This level of sensitivity requires maturity. Without proper grounding, these waves could overwhelm. But God has fortified you for this. What once would have drowned you now flows through you like a passing tide. You have become a channel, not because you sought it, but because you surrendered. Sign 4. Your healing style collapses and evolves. As this final stage deepens, something even more disorienting takes place. The very tools, methods, and techniques that once empowered your healing ministry suddenly feel empty. The systems you trusted no longer work. The steps you used to guide others now fall silent. The words you once spoke with confidence now feel hollow in your mouth. Where once you had a rhythm, carefully designed sessions, trusted rituals, structured practices, now there is only quiet. The natural instinct is to panic, to search for new methods, to fix what feels broken. But this is not brokenness. This is divine deconstruction. God is stripping away technique. He is removing your reliance on systems, not because the methods were wrong, but because they are no longer needed. What He is building cannot fit into the structures you once leaned on. You have graduated beyond doing healing into simply being the vessel through which healing flows. In John 15 verse 5, Jesus declares, "I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever abides in me and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit, for apart from me you can do nothing." The fruit no longer comes from effort, it flows naturally from abiding presence. Where once you facilitated healing, now healing moves through your very existence. A glance, a pause, a silent moment of presence carries more power than hours of process and technique. Your stillness becomes the medicine. Your silence speaks louder than any affirmation. This is why many healers entering this phase experience a season of deep confusion in their practice. The temptation is to return to what once worked. But beloved, the Holy Spirit is rewriting your assignment. What you carried before was preparation. What you carry now is embodiment. The shift feels strange because it is unfamiliar. You are no longer managing energy, you have become the frequency itself. The work that once required structure now happens in breath, in stillness, in quiet authority that needs no performance. This is God refining you into His purest instrument, no longer dependent on method but fully surrendered to presence. You have become a resting place where others encounter God simply by standing near. Healing flows not because you are speaking, but because you are present. And in this place you will find that what once required striving now unfolds in perfect peace. What took hours now takes moments. What demanded technique now happens through the simple weight of His Spirit resting upon you. You have not lost your gift, you have stepped into its highest form. Sign 5. You crave radical stillness. That is not about rest. There comes a point in the final stage of healing where the soul no longer hungers for more learning, more doing, or even more healing. Instead, something deeper rises, a longing not for activity, but for complete stillness. And it is not the kind of rest you once sought. This is not recovery from exhaustion. It is not a break from busy schedules. It is a holy demand for silence. You feel it as an undeniable pull. The noise of the world, even the gentle distractions you once tolerated, now overwhelms your spirit. The phone rings and it feels intrusive. Conversations drain you. Music irritates. Even light-hearted entertainment feels like static against your skin. Your nervous system grows hyper-aware of every vibration that competes with this holy quiet. You feel emotionally flooded by what once barely registered. But this is not burnout. It is not emotional collapse. It is energetic recalibration. God Himself is calling your entire being into a new alignment, and for that, the outside world must be shut out. You are not tired, you are being rewired. In this sacred stillness, your spirit is being prepared for the next level of divine assignment. Isaiah 30 verse 15 speaks directly to this. In returning and rest you shall be saved. In quietness and in trust shall be your strength. This is the strength God is now establishing within you. It cannot be forged in movement. It is born only in stillness. As you sit in this profound quiet, something remarkable happens. Your spirit begins receiving divine instructions. Not through study, not through striving, but through silent download. The assignments for your next season, the wisdom for your next calling, and the blueprints for your next ministry are not given through loud proclamations. They come as whispers carried in the stillness. You are being prepared to carry a level of authority that requires a fully settled soul. The pace you once lived in can no longer carry the weight of what God is about to entrust to you. He is making your soul a landing place for His next move. And in this stillness, you are not losing momentum. You are gaining clarity. Sign 6. You begin experiencing deep knowing without proof. As you surrender to this radical stillness, another sign begins to emerge, one that marks the highest level of spiritual healing, deep knowing without proof. You simply know. You sense truth before words are spoken. You discern shifts before circumstances confirm them. You see outcomes before they unfold. And perhaps most surprising of all, you stop questioning it. This is no longer intuition in the way you once knew it. It is divine merging of knowing and action. There is no analysis, no hesitation, no need to validate. The knowing rises instantly, fully formed, and you move with certainty. You do not argue with it. You do not seek confirmation. You simply obey. John 16:13 declares, "When the Spirit of truth comes, he will guide you into all truth." This is what you are now living. You are no longer guided by external signs or systems. You are led directly by the Spirit of truth dwelling within you. The questions that once filled your mind, "Is this right? Should I wait? Am I hearing correctly?" are gone. You have stepped into a new level of trust. Others may not understand this. Your clarity may intimidate those who still require endless processing and affirmation. But you no longer have anything to prove. You are not rushing to explain your decisions. You simply walk forward as God leads. The knowing is enough. This is not arrogance. This is alignment. You are not moving from human certainty, but from Spirit-breathed assurance. God has stripped away every layer of insecurity, every fear of getting it wrong, every need for human approval. You no longer ask for signs because you are the sign. The authority you now carry is born from years of surrender, loss, and deep refinement. And this knowing reaches far beyond personal decisions. You sense when to speak, when to be silent, when to step in, and when to step back, all without needing explanation. You discern people's hearts in an instant. You recognize divine connections before conversations even begin. Your spirit scans rooms before your feet cross the threshold. This is not something you learned. It is something you remembered. God is bringing you back to the pure sensitivity you carried before the world taught you to doubt yourself. This knowing was always within you, but it could only emerge after everything else was stripped away. In this place, you no longer carry healing as something you do. You carry it as who you are. You don't study it, you embody it. And now, God can fully trust you to move at His pace, in His timing, with His authority, because your spirit no longer demands proof. It simply obeys His voice. Sign 7. You feel disconnected from every version of your past self. There comes a sacred moment near the end of your healing journey where you no longer recognize who you once were. Not because your past was wrong or shameful, but because it has grown too small for the person God is now forming. The names you once carried, the roles you once played, the methods you once trusted, they no longer fit. What once defined you feels foreign. You scroll through your old writings, teachings, social media, or ministry notes and feel strangely detached. These were once your truth, your foundation, your tools. But now, they seem like garments you've outgrown. Not because they were untrue, but because they were temporary assignments for an earlier season. This is the disconnection God allows when your identity expands beyond what your history can contain. You feel suspended, almost floating between timelines. You are not anchored in who you once were, and yet you do not fully see who you are becoming. You stand in what feels like wholly unknowing. And beloved, that unknowing is not failure, it is preparation. In Isaiah 43:18-19, God declares, "Forget the former things, do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it?" This is your now. God is building something entirely new, not with the blueprint of your former self, but from a divine design you have not yet seen. And in this strange space, God is doing His deepest work. The familiar structures are falling, but your foundation is not shaking, because the true foundation is no longer built upon roles, titles, or methods. It is built upon your identity as His vessel. You are being unanchored from the temporary so that you may fully carry the eternal. Sign 8. You realize you were never called to be the healer. You were called to be whole. And now you arrive at the final revelation, the most liberating truth of all. You were never called to carry the title of healer. You were never called to hold everyone's pain, to strive endlessly to fix, to lead, to carry. You were called to be whole. You feel it rising, the quiet longing to simply live, to laugh without analyzing, to rest without guilt, to sit with someone in silence without needing to rescue them, to eat, to breathe, to cry, to play, without turning every moment into a spiritual assignment. You are no longer called to strive for healing. You are called to embody wholeness. This is where your power becomes its purest. Not because you do more, but because you need to do less. Healing now flows through your presence. You do not lead others by effort, you lead them by embodiment. People are not drawn to you because you have answers. They are drawn because your wholeness reminds them of who they are. You stop teaching as an expert. You begin walking as a companion. You stop offering healing as a transaction. You simply live, and your life itself becomes the invitation. Your very being mirrors back to others their own potential for wholeness. You carry peace not as a gift you give, but as a state you inhabit. 2 Corinthians 3:18 says, "We all who with unveiled faces contemplate the Lord's glory are being transformed into his image with ever-increasing glory." This is now your ministry, to simply reflect his glory by being fully present in your humanity. And here, something beautiful happens. You return fully to being human. You allow yourself to be soft, to rest, to enjoy life's simple pleasures. You are no longer shaped by the expectations of others or driven by the pressure to perform healing. The striving falls away. The identity of healer dissolves. And what remains is what God intended all along: a child fully alive in his presence. This is your highest assignment, not to perform healing, but to embody wholeness, to carry his peace not as a task, but as your natural state. And from this place, your very presence releases healing into every room you enter, not because you try, but because you have become the resting place of his spirit. You have stepped into the highest form of healing. It is no longer something you do, it is who you are. The striving has been stripped away. The tools, the titles, the constant reaching for more, all have been surrendered. And in that surrender, God has done what only he can do. He has made you his mirror. You no longer carry healing as a task to manage. You carry it as your very presence. Wherever you walk, his peace flows. Wherever you sit, his comfort rests. Not because of words you speak, but because of the stillness you embody. The world no longer sees your effort. They encounter his spirit through your calm, your wholeness, your quiet authority. This is the mantle you now wear. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to heal the brokenhearted. Luke 4:18. Not because you earned it, but because you allowed him to complete his work within you. You have crossed beyond the need for constant breakthrough. You are no longer pursuing healing. You have become the resting place of healing itself. And as you move forward, you will carry his light into rooms that still sit in darkness, simply by being fully aligned with the one who lives within you. Your healing is complete. Your assignment has begun.